First, it's a week after the election, and one we'd usually declare to be politics-free. But there's been even more politicking going on since the vote than there was in the entire campaign. The results seem to suggest that many voters want something different. Nationally, around 20% said a plague on both the major houses. The leaders of those houses got their start in student politics. Coincidentally, there's an election going on at the ANU, and reporter Kate Evans set out to see if there were any parallels with the federal poll.
Some might call it a lively environment, others, and I'd certainly be in this number, would call it an unpleasant environment. And so, yes, it certainly is rather unpleasant. I've always known since I've been involved that this is exactly what it's like, but I've been involved in student politics in spite of that.
That's Tony Abbott in 1979. 30 years on, has anything changed?
It can be nasty, and I just don't think it should be. Like, it is student politics after all.
Student politics has a bad name. I think, in general, it is often petty.
You don't have new students who want to be a part of it because they see it as being careerist, they see it as being bitchy and a waste of time. And, the cycle just perpetuates.
Is it as nasty as everyone says student politics is?
No, definitely not. We're out here, we're having fun. We annoy everyone all through week 6. But I think reality is it's important that we try and get out here and talk to them to see what they want.
Is student politics as nasty as people say it is?
Nastier, generally, yeah. One of the other candidates was actually killed last week.
Well, not really. But this year there has been a drop-off in the numbers of students vying for positions in the Students' Association and to run the student newspaper, as well as in the numbers of people voting.
This year for ANU, the Young Liberals aren't competing for the Students' Association as they have done in previous years. So we're seeing a relatively uncompetitive election.
Last year, you couldn't walk through here without actually getting bombarded with somebody with a leaflet or a flyer or something like that, with somebody saying vote for me or vote for me. But now there's sort of a disenchantment with the political nature of the student elections.
In general, the student community has always been apathetic, but there's always been more people willing to be involved, and I think that's definitely dropped off a fair bit.
For much the same reasons as I think they're turning away from politics on a federal level as well. I mean, they're not interested, they don't feel like they're being engaged because no one's willing to take a risk because they're worried about making a mistake or worried about their future CV.
This year it's a combination of things. I think this year's Noosa-Roney debacle debate has had a lot of people be like, what's the point? It's funds that are being wasted away for petty fights and not being used productively. I think it's the federal election. A lot of people that are involved and interested in federal politics have been putting their efforts into campaigning for their local member.
One of the issues frustrating students is the demise of the newspaper Waroni, which is no longer being published this year. The 2 editors quit early in second semester after a series of clashes between them and the ANU Students' Association, which rejects allegations that the paper was unfairly censored.
When we couldn't even get those issues out past our own student council, as well as being put under the thumb a lot, we thought, why stay?
We're under legal obligations to make sure that what is written about is fair and balanced and reasonable. We have to look after the interests of the Students' Association.
There's always going to be tension between student journalists and student politicians.
It's been a strange year in terms of politics on a federal level as well, and I think that was quite reflected in student politics. There are a lot of things that people just felt ambivalent about, which makes our job really hard because it's hard to engage students who don't want to be engaged.
There are a lot of personal conflicts, especially nowadays with things like social mediums, with Facebook. A lot of it is played out in a much more public spectrum, a much more direct, immediate kind of fight than it probably used to be.
Last year there was a lot of promises and not a lot of deliveries. This year we're trying to go the reverse and not trying to promise a lot, but trying to deliver a lot.
Despite both potential Prime Ministers' histories in student politics, few of today's students claim to be serious about a political career beyond the university.
I definitely think it is a good base, but I don't think that's what it's all about. Like for me, for example, I really want to work in doing community projects in developing nations, so I'm not saying that no one on our ticket wants to go on to do federal politics or state politics or whatever, but I don't think that's the ambition of everyone.
A Noosa president is really just one rung beneath Prime Minister.
Do you, like Julia Gillard and Tony Abbott, want to go into national politics one day?
No, absolutely not. I've been at ANU for a little while, and I've had my fill of student representation. To the best of my knowledge, the only ANU student president who's gone on to politics is Gary Humphries, the Liberal senator for the ACT, and he doesn't necessarily reflect the views of ANU students. Every so often we manage to come together and say something sensible about broader issues as well. Student politics is always in a great state of flux, and it's a really interesting, in small ways it's a barometer of how our generation is feeling about particular issues, if you can cut through some of the nonsense.
It's a bit ridiculous, student politics.
It seems to be about tracking people down in Union Court and pressuring them into the polling booth.
Are you planning on voting in the student elections?
No, I don't think so.
And why not?
I don't really see the need for it, really. Just go to class, do our classes, go home.
If we don't vote, then if things go wrong or something happens, then I guess we don't really have a right to say, oh, you should have done this, you should have done that, or because we didn't do our part. So. Yeah.
Kate Evans with that picture of campus politics.